UBC. Y'all took her from me, but it's okay because I see that God is working through her here, and I am very thankful for that. So my name is Melissa Tarleton, or Mel Townsend. I go by both. I don't know why, but I do. I answer to both. I will introduce myself as both. It's very confusing. So Mel and Melissa, I will answer. I love this theme. I want to call out my favorite so far. If you still have it on? Oh no. She had a shirt that said, "This is my football jersey." And I really appreciated that. Stand up, let everyone see your amazing football jersey. I loved it. But there was no Aggie jerseys here. Are there no Aggies here? Okay, thank you. All right. So I'm here today to talk about discipline. Discipline, it's kind of the bummer of working with kids sometimes, but I'm going to try to turn it around and make you rethink discipline. But there are those moments where we have to say, "Lord, help me." And I want you to know that with discipline, the Lord will help you. So we are going to talk about discipline with a Christian mind today, and I hope you learned something. You can change it. So my name is Melissa. I went to Texas A&M, got my bachelor's in psychology, and then my master's in child development. And then I worked for early childhood intervention, which is a program nationwide for 0 to 3-year-olds with developmental delays, where we go into the homes and work with them. So I was a child development specialist, early intervention specialist with them. That's kind of my background. But more or less, I also want you to know I am in the thick of motherhood. And my kids don't behave very well all the time. This is me paying for professional pictures. And them showing their love for me. No, and it is now this was a little bit ago. He's now 5. He's the one looking away to the right. He's on the left looking away. And then Ruby Ruth, very unamused. That's also kind of her go-to personality. So I am also in the thick of it, going through discipline is all day, every day at home, and then also I work with UBC weekday ministry, where I teach them, but also help consult anytime we have kids that are challenging to us, and we might need a little help for the teachers. So that's kind of my background. Also, I do want to really thank you for being volunteers on Sunday. Y'all are raising the next generation of the church, and that is what we need always. A quiet church is not a church we want to hear. We want to hear the loud church, the one filled with kids, the ones that are messy. That's our next church. So thank you for what y'all do. I do want y'all to rethink discipline today. So what are some of the negative words or images you sometimes get when you think about the word discipline? What? No. Okay. Punishment, yelling. Were y'all ever punished? And everyone has their story. I have my story. I got soap in the mouth. I remember it. I will not say B-U-T-T ever again in my life. But we will talk about that method in a little bit. But yeah, so discipline does have this negative feel to it a lot. But I need you to rethink it. Whoa, table. So in the Bible, is there misbehavior? Oh yeah. Is there moral failure? Oh yeah. The ultimate theme of the Bible still is love. Okay? Love is how we need to rethink discipline. God so loved this world, this yucky world, with children doing tantrums, and children throwing tables, and children spitting. God loved this world, and we are going to love them. The main thing I want you to walk away with, I'll say it a lot today, is we are going to love these children at their worst and at their best. And we want them to know that we love them at their worst and we love them at their best. Because God loves us at our our worst and at our best. Discipline as discipleship. And I love Michelle, y'all's thing, kids, goes into this. And we don't use discipline for us. It is not for our convenience. It is not for us to control the kids. It is to disciple them. It is to gear their hearts in the right ways. Okay? Yes, it would be easy to yell at them and for them to stop talking because that makes our job easier. I get that. But that doesn't help them. That doesn't disciple their hearts in the right way. Okay? It's not about us. Discipline is all about looking for those teachable moments. And that teacher-student connection. We'll talk about connection a lot. Discipline can't exist without a connection. The disciples had to talk to someone, right? They couldn't just yell at you to say, love Jesus. No, they connected with them. Everyone they met, they connected. We need to make sure we have those connections with our kids so that we can disciple them. Ultimate goal is to create an environment and relationship that fosters students' social, emotional, and spiritual growth. I love Hebrews 12, 4 through 11. I am gonna read two of these, two verses from it. Hebrews 12, 6. Because the Lord disciplines the one he loves, and he chastens everyone he accepts as his son. Discipline must come from love. Okay? And 12:11, no discipline seems pleasant at the time, but painful. Later on, however, it produces a harvest of righteousness and peace for those who have been trained by it. Rethink discipline. It is not punishment, it's training. It's discipling. Yeah. Yeah, okay. All right, so now we're kind of gonna go into like the nitty-gritty parts of it, and we're gonna go into what y'all can do proactively. So we're gonna have the proactive side and the reactive side of discipline. Proactive is a lot easier, but it's all on you, okay? So this is kind of like the classroom management, what you can do to set them up for success, and building that connection. Like I said, y'all, if you go to discipline a kid that you have not had a connection with, it's not gonna have so much harder getting through their brains. The connection is so important to have with these kids so that you can then use discipline as a teachable moment. And I know that this is on Sundays, and it's just once a week or every other week that you need these kids pick up on your connection fast. They can read us fast, okay? So the vibe. This is something you can set up really fast. And it's as simple as that first greeting. And because you might only see them every other Sunday or just once a week, I do think it's important every time you say them. Hi, Bob, Miss Mills, excited to see you today. Remind them of your name because that helps with that connection, okay? And then if you can try to remember their names, I know y'all have a lot, but that makes them feel good. That's an instant connection you can have with these kids. It's just to know their name and then for them to know your name, okay? And then also if you can, do parents come all the way into the room? Not always, okay. If you do see a parent throughout, if you could introduce yourself at some point. Having that family connection helps to talk about nothing, gives you then the ability to talk about something. So when we're having trouble with kids, it's a little harder to come out of nowhere and be like, hey, we're really having trouble with your kid doing these kind of things if you've never talked to them before. So if you just see them in the hall or something, like, hey, I'm Paul's teacher, nice to meet you. Paul, I would love about nothing, so that one day you can talk about something. Does that make sense? Okay. If you amp them up, how good they come down. So I know y'all do some really cool things. I think we're calling him out right now. If you are in a classroom or in worship and you get them amped up, do you think they're going to go to a classroom and sit right away? No. If you're in a class and you get them all, I do this, so when I teach science, you say a funny question, they all start laughing, and then I'm supposed to go back into story time. It's not going to happen. I amp them up. They're crazy now. I got now like 12 2-year-olds laughing about something random. So if you get them amped up, you also need to be responsible for helping calm it back down, okay? Or else you're setting yourself up for failure, and that falls back on you. So if it's worship or something, if you want to end on a crazy song, you might want to think about going back down to a slower song, something like that. Or just total redirection. If you're in the classroom, go back to the little song or something like open, shut them, totally distract them, redirect. Because if you got them crazy, which is fine, kids love to be crazy, but you need to be okay with bringing them back down. And sometimes just talking in a whisper is all they need to get back down, and eyes on you, okay? But as a classroom management style, you need to be aware that if you got them crazy, they're gonna stay crazy, okay? They don't like to come back down. You have to assist that a little bit. Your body language tells plenty. They can read you. Also, if you really want to talk to them about something more serious or make a connection, get on their eye level as much as you can. I know bending down hurts sometimes more than other days, but the more you can get on their eye level, the better it is for connection. I'm gonna go back. So why my husband and child are on that slide is my husband is very fun. He's very crazy, and which is great, except he comes home at 6 o'clock at night and amps them up till 7, and then he says bedtime. Y'all, my kids aren't going to bed because he does this for an hour and wrestles and all of that. So we have lots of conversations about you gotta get them back down. And you're the one that's going to do that with them. So just be aware that it's okay to have fun and get wild and get crazy. But if they have something next that you want their attention, you're going to have to help them, okay? The flow. This is tricky on Sundays too. I know you'll Sundays and y'all switch volunteers. But consistency helps kids so much. So provide as much consistency as you can. But this is why also on Sundays we have to have a little bit more grace with the kids that need consistency, because Sundays are just naturally not as consistent as when they go to school, Monday through Friday, same teacher, blah, blah, blah. So provide as much as you can. If there's certain kids that are challenging, maybe the same kind of volunteer is with them, talking to them. Also, if you have a partner, sometimes just being on the same page as using words. Are we, for little kids especially, are we gonna say line up? Or, how are we doing the line up? Just little things like that make a difference. So just talk with your partner like, let's line up the same, or talk to the ones that are in your room on the Sundays you're not there. How are we gonna do snack? Are they sitting in the same place? Are they sitting in chairs? Just little things that you can provide consistency on. Just think about it and try to provide that as much as possible, because kids do thrive on consistency. There are, especially the younger ones, struggle with transitions. Have you ever had a kid struggle with a transition? Yeah, there's a lot of head nods. Transitions are hard for kids, especially because y'all have so much fun and then you have to leave it. Those transitions are extra hard for kids. Um, so we need to provide as much consistency with how we're going to prep that child or all the children for it. So that can be, we're gonna talk about as soon as that kid enters, this is the order of events, just to remind them that that's what it is. We're gonna give them a 5-minute warning, a 3-minute warning. They'll present a timer. There's different ways to do it, and Michelle knows lots of ways. But come up with a consistent way for a child that struggles with transitions, so that every week he doesn't like, okay, well this week I had this like visual timer, and the next week the teacher said, let's go. That's hard, okay? So if you can provide as much consistency with transitions especially, that's going to help. But transitions naturally are really hard for kids. Their brain has to switch from one event to the other. Yeah, you can switch. Behavior expectations. Kids don't always, how do I say this? It is not always common sense for a child to know what common sense rules should be, okay? Assume they don't know. Just go with that assumption. And so if you need to review the rules every time, review the rules every time. But what kids like to see, they don't like to always be told, you can't do this, you can't do that. It gets nagging, they get annoyed with you, and you took away their 3rd grade coolness because you kept telling them what they couldn't do. Focus on what they can do, okay? So if you want a child to, what's the behavior I'll have trouble with sometimes as a group? Talking, okay. So if you want to focus on what they can do, how could you rephrase talking? You can talk later. We can have a talking time. You can talk when you raise your hand and I call on you. You can remind them when it is an appropriate time to talk. Focus on what they can do. Or if it's during that time, focus on what they can do at that time. Like you can have your eyes on the Bible right now while we're reading. And then we can talk after. Things like that. So just try to flip things for a positive way for the kids, what they can do. And catch them being good. Even if it's the most ridiculous thing that you don't think you need to compliment a kid on, if they're struggling, compliment them on that second you catch them saying, you're doing such a good job sitting. Instant, okay? A lot of those times those kids get nagged on all the time and they're just are getting this label placed on them that they're a bad kid. And that is the worst thing we could possibly let them think. That they're a bad kid. Catch them being good as much as you can. And then all of a sudden you'll see them sit a little straighter and all of a sudden start to rethink, yeah, maybe I can do good things. Because at school or wherever or at home, I only get talked to when I'm doing bad things. And sometimes that's why they're talking. Because when they're bad, somebody talks to them. Kids figure that out fast. That when they're bad, they get attention. So give them attention when they're good. That little half second that they did something, catch it, okay? And you'll see them start standing a little taller. Maybe I am a good kid. Yes, you are, okay? For these older kids, a lot of times they want to know what you're going to give in return. It's almost like a behavior covenant. Like, all right, if you give me this, and tell them, I will give you respect. I will play the game with you. I will sit next to you at worship. You can give them things that they want, okay? Make it known that you're ready to help them as much as you want them to help you, okay? Individually, sometimes the kids pull them over right away. We're gonna talk one-on-one about what the rules are, what they can't do, set them up for success. These are those kids that have a little bit more trouble. Before every activity, sometimes you have to, or if they're having trouble at small group, just make sure you have reviewed the rules with them, make sure you have eye contact. do this nicely and appropriately, of course, but sometimes they just need to hear it again, okay? Reward versus bribe. Do y'all know the difference? This is always fun. Yeah. Because I'm desperate. Okay, so this is not to be used all the time. This is our individualized. We're struggling with certain kids. Rewards are set up before. If you do this, then I can give you this. If you raise your hand, then I will be sure to call on you first. If you get in line, I will hold your hand. Bribes, those are mamas in Target in the toy aisle. And the kid is screaming, and we're like, just take it, I gotta go. I can't handle this anymore. Bribes are the moment you gave in. Not great. So what happens in a bribe is the behavior has already happened. Your kid is screaming, tantruming, losing their mind on the floor at Target, and you just want to get out of there, and you give in to the behavior. The behavior stopped. Oh, it stopped. But guess what happens the next time you're at Target? Oh, the same thing happens. Yeah, because you started a new baseline. To get a behavior to get extinct, you're gonna have to stop it so it goes to extinct. If you give into a behavior at this level, then you gotta be prepared the next time. It's starting right there, okay? But setting up a reward system beforehand and proactively in a challenging behavior, talk with your partner, sometimes just a little sticker or something helps. That is an individualized way to kind of set up a proactive thing. So why is there a picture of me holding my son going down the aisle? So my sister was getting married, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna set up a reward system because he's the ring bearer, and I gotta get him down that aisle. Okay, so I'm behaviorist, I got this. So I said, there's a crucifix at the end of the aisle. It was a Catholic church. I said, if you walk to Jesus, then you'll get a sucker. Okay? So, you keep repeating that. If you walk to Jesus, then you get a sucker. Okay? He's 2 years old, he's feeling pretty good. Well, he walks out and he goes, Jesus, sucker. Oops. So then everyone starts laughing and he freaks out. So then we ended up having to swing him anyways, and he still got his sucker. But just know sometimes rewards go wrong. But yeah, so that's my funny story of a reward in my house. But yes, rewards have to be set up beforehand, and they need to be for a behavior you're having trouble with. And you have to be willing to not give it if they don't do it, which is also hard, and also why it's not always great to use in the classrooms and things, because if they don't get it, then you sometimes have a next behavior to deal with. But there are certain cases that you and your partner might talk about. It could work for us. It's also good in the schedule if the next thing is good. So like to help with the transition where you know the next thing. So first we're gonna do Bible time, then we're going to the playground, just to help them know that's coming next, and then it's a built-in kind of reward for the kid. That helps with the transition. If you're also having trouble with a kid, start having open communication with the parents. And I don't want you to get up here and be like, he doesn't transition. No, I did not tell y'all to do that, okay? What I do want you to say is one good thing about the kid, or something you did with them that day. You're gonna sandwiches. Then secondly, say, hey, we're having a little trouble with transition. Is there something you do at home that helps? Is there something like the teacher does at school to help? You need to make this about working together. Not calling the kid out and saying, like, we can't deal with this. No. Work together, okay? And that's where working, with the family, and talking about nothing beforehand can help you talk about something, okay? So then the family can say, oh, I'll talk to the teacher at school and see what they do. So then we can build that continuity, especially since Sundays are naturally sometimes inconsistent for the kids. It helps build consistency. And sometimes it's just the word that the teacher uses or the parent uses, and all you have to do is get whatever magic word that is, and then it works. And then again, say something nice about the kid after. Sandwiching is very good when talking to parents. Good, something we're struggling with, how can we work together to help the kid, and then something good again, okay? The parents want to feel that you're not calling them out, or that they're not a burden to y'all on Sundays. We just want to work together, okay? Your own children. I know, I'm not gonna find out who or anything. I do it during the week. Some of us teach our own children on Sundays. I do want to say this can be tricky, and I want to give you tools that could help with this. It is tricky because at home, we pick our battles. Our discipline can kind of go like this at home because we gotta survive, okay? And so sometimes, and at home, I don't make you raise your hand to talk to me. You just blurt all day long, okay? And I listen. But then at church and here, I need you to raise your hand because that's the rule and expectation for all the other kids. And that can be tricky for the kids. I speak from experience. During the week, I teach my own son and daughter. My son handles it a lot better, but he is a blurter and likes to talk, and so we've had talks about, hey, I'm not totally your mom right now. You don't have to respect me as a teacher too and raise your hand. And then we have my daughter, as you saw in that picture of her personality, and the last science class I taught, she said, Mom, that was boring. Okay. We also don't need the kids saying that in front of the whole group either, okay? Because that's definitely not what we do at school, little Ruby Ruth. So it gets tricky. So if you teach your own kid, make sure you prep them before and after on what the behavior expectations are and why they have to change. And you have to hold them to the same rules and behavior expectations as your other kids, and it gets hard. Yes, I taught Ruby a few times, and she's hard. She wanted a toy, and she thought I could get it for her. I wasn't gonna save her. Girlfriend pouted in the corner for 30 minutes. And it hurts my mommy heart, but sorry kid, like I wasn't gonna save any of the other kids. So then my boss walks by, she goes, is Ruby okay? Sure. Like Ruby's having a Ruby moment. And so just know, if you teach your own kids, it's gonna you need to do some prep work and know that. It's hard for their brains to switch on and off too. And as hard as it is for your brain to switch on and off too. And I'll be quick, like if Nolan raises his hand, I answer to him first. It's just kind of unconscious things we do. And so I have to really remember, okay, you're just a student right now. This is really hard, but you're just my student right now. So that's my little thing on your own children. We also need to making sure that we're developmentally appropriate. We cannot be getting mad at kids for doing things that their brains just can't do, okay? Giving directions appropriately for the child. For really little ones, one-step directions. When they turn like 3 years old, we can expect two-step directions. And if they can't do that, know what they can do, okay? So if you see they're struggling with two-step directions, go back to one-step directions. Get a feel of what your children can and can't do. Then as they age, they seem to go backwards in what directions they can follow. So if you see them struggling with directions again, Make sure you have eye contact, see if they can repeat their direction back to you, things like that. Attention span. If you see your child getting up from the table, but they've been there for 2 to 3 times minutes their age, they did the best that their brain can do, okay? And so that's a time where you cannot get mad at them or make them come back to the table. You need to be aware of what their attention span is and suit that. So maybe your little story time needs to be shorter, or change the engagement, change how they stand, sit, things like that if they're really struggling. You cannot hold a kid accountable for more than their brain allows. Now we're gonna get to the reactive side. The behaviors are going to happen. So, as my good friend Dolly says, pour yourself a cup of inhibition. Here we go. Y'all ready? All right. Raise your hand if you've had a behavior in your room that's slightly negative. Oh, yeah. How many times, raise your hand if you had a moment where you're like, what? What just happened? Okay, yeah, I feel you. I get called in for those, so. Before we proceed with dealing with the child that just did the what? No, can't versus won't. There are some children that won't do the behavior that's been asked upon them, but assume they can't. Always go with the assumption that their brain is just not allowing them to do that right now, okay? It's gonna help with the discipline if you just assume they're doing the best they can with their brain at that moment, okay? Their brains are not always ready to be the best that you think they can do in that moment, that they've done in the past, but always assume that they're doing the best they can. That will help you with how you approach it, okay? Capacity to regulate fluctuates. They could be going really great one Sunday, and then the next Sunday they come back and you're like, that's a different kid. What did mom feed him for breakfast? Mama fed him the same thing, calm down. Their ability to regulate just can change so quickly. From one moment to the next, one Sunday to the next, once again, assume they're doing the best they can in that moment. Discipline is not a one-size-fits-all. I would love to stand up here and be like, all right, if you have a kid that hits, you do this. If you have a kid that spits, you do this. I can't do that. There is no text, oh no, sorry. There is not a one-size-fits-all. What works for one kid, and then you're feeling good about yourself, right? And you're like, I changed that behavior. This kid is so easy now in class. And then you get a new kid that does the same thing. You try what you did with that kid. Think it's gonna work? Nope. Discipline is not a one-size-fits-all. So we have the same principles with every kid that we approach, but sometimes there's different things that work. And then halt. If you think the child is hungry, angry, lonely, or tired, you do not proceed with any kind of disciplinary thing. That's what they need right now, is to be addressed on why they are hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. You cannot expect a child to behave in any way if they have any of those going on in their brain, okay? And this is one of those things, you think you know what happens behind closed doors, you don't always do. So if any of those things are happening, let's focus on that. Give them grace, work on that. Don't worry about what the behavior was. Okay, does that make sense? Okay. Also for like sensory kids, I could give a whole nother spiel on that, but if you see them flapping or rocking or spinning or really getting tactile or not letting anyone near them that day, really pushing back, they could just be having a sensory dysregulation moment. We need to focus on that and not that they just hit a kid. I realize that seems crazy, but you need to work on what their brain needs right now, and that is to address those needs, okay? because that child probably has no idea that they hit another kid at that moment, or that they talked to you in an inappropriate way. Their brain is so focused on trying to fix their needs, that's all they can think about. Quick note on aggression. So I would assume that in the church, y'all sign something that says you will not hurt the child, correct? Okay. So I realize that can be common sense in the church that we're not gonna spank or hurt a child, but I do wanna go into why. When a child is scared, who do you want them to go to? The adult, you. If you hurt them, where do they go? Anywhere else. They don't go anywhere. Their brain goes into a complete, cortisol starts going off, and they shut down. Creates an unsolvable paradox for them. And why? While you know, okay, we don't hit someone in church, this also includes verbal aggression, humiliation, and shaming. And those can sometimes sneak up on us. Sometimes you'll see it, like, why are you acting like that? You're acting like a baby. That's humiliation, okay? You used to know how to do this. Why are you not doing it today? Shaming, okay? It still creates that unsolvable paradox. It's gonna hurt their hearts. And where do they go? If you hurt their heart, where do they go? They shut down, yeah. So just know that it's not just spanking, hitting, those kind of things. It's also humiliation and shaming that creates that unsolvable paradox for the kids, okay? And that's why we need to avoid those disciplinary methods at all costs, because when a child is hurt or scared or lonely, where do we want them to go? To us, to the church. Yeah, we want them to open up to us, and that's why we cannot create that unsolvable paradox for those kids. We want them to feel safe. If there was an important slide, this is it, okay? Discipline is about teaching. Like I said, we're discipling these kids, we're getting their hearts in the right place. Discipline is about teaching. Teaching requires kids to be receptive to learning. Receptivity results from connection. Connection moves kids from reactivity to receptivity. That is the ultimate goal of discipline, is to make these teachable moments. And that is why it's so important to have that connection, okay, with these kids. And we're gonna really talk about how to move their brains from reactivity to receptivity, okay? Y'all on board? All right. Here's the brain. I'm gonna talk about our upstairs brain and our downstairs brain, okay? Start with our downstairs brain. Some people call it the reptilian brain, the lizard brain, the primitive brain, amygdala. It is our fight, flight, freeze, or fate. They keep adding F's to it, okay? It's our survivor brain, okay? You see a snake, what do? You get out. Y'all, you know how like neighborhood Facebook pages go? I posted to be careful. I live around like a pond because there was a snake under my kid's playhouse. Y'all, people came after me and said, why did you kill it? It's non-poisonous. Y'all think I cared about that when I saw a snake under my kid's playhouse? Nope, I killed it, okay? Sorry, because my brain was all downstairs and me and my kids are surviving, okay? I did not look at those stripes. I wonder, or the head shape, apparently the head shape really matters, okay? No, I killed it. And we're alive, okay? And it didn't come back. So our downstairs brain is super important. It lets us survive, okay? And then we have our upstairs brain. And it doesn't develop until we're 25. Some of us are still waiting for our upstairs brains to develop, okay? Our upstairs brain is really cool. That is how we problem solve. It's empathy. It's all those things that we look for in a good character person. Your upstairs brain and downstairs brain don't naturally connect, okay? You have to build a stairway. And we need to help kids build this stairway. Because when a kid gets upset, do you think they go upstairs or downstairs? They are all downstairs. Yep, every single kid goes downstairs. They are in a panic. They cannot think logically at that point. They are mad. They are trying to get out of the situation. All the things, okay? Those are our downstairs brain. We're gonna have to help them get upstairs, okay? That's what we're gonna do. You can turn the slide. Before you can calm their brain, you have to calm your brain, which is way easier said than done. Because you got all these kids you're in charge of, and little Billy's acting a fool, and your brain is going crazy because you're also trying to figure out, okay, I gotta deal with that, but all this is happening. Why is he doing this? I'm upset, all these things. Before we can handle that situation, you gotta calm your brain. You cannot discipline if you are upset. And this is the hardest thing for adults, is to calm yourself before you go discipline. So I want you to talk to your table about quick little ways you could calm yourself before you go deal with the situation, okay? All right, does anybody want to volunteer an idea? Anybody want to volunteer an idea? Breathe. Big, deep breaths. Yeah, that's what y'all said? Gosh, I'll get there. Tapping out. Yeah, if you are struggling that day and you need your partner, if you came in all fuzzled about something was going on at your house, make sure you tell your partner, today is not my day, okay? Do make sure you communicate that. There are just some days where I can't take another thing and I'm gonna have trouble calming down. Know that about yourself. Make sure you tell your partner, hey, you're on duty today. Counting, some people will whisper a scripture to themselves real quick. Pray, yes, there was a time to pray. It's now. Yes, so just make sure that you are in a good, healthy state, that your brain has moved to the upstairs before you approach it. Don't poke the lizard is essentially the saying that says, if you're in your reptilian brain and you go to that kid, y'all are both just gonna be fighting like little monsters together and nobody's getting anything, okay? This is also timeout doesn't always work. The main reason is if you send a kid to timeout, are they thinking about what they did or are they mad at you? Yeah, so now they forgot all about whatever happened and they're just getting mad at you, okay? Me and my kid, Nolan, we both do walkaways though. And this is set up in advance. We're having a moment, hey Nolan, we're walking away, okay? He goes to the stairs and I go usually to the pantry. Get some chocolate, let's go. But we know we're coming right back and we're gonna talk about this. But we both need a second, okay? If you have that set up or a calm down corner in advance, that's fine. But if you just say, go to timeout, you are not gonna be able to go back to that teachable moment a lot of times. They're just focused on, I'm so mad at you right now, okay? Connect to their brain, validate their feelings. You are mad, I see you are sad. Validate, it's okay to feel mad. It's okay to have all these feelings, okay? Feeling is good. Reflect, listen to them. Get their part of the story. You know what happened probably, you saw it, but let them tell it to you, okay? Let them get it out, what they were feeling, why they did that, things like that. Get high level if you can, that's just another part of connecting. And just know you can't teach an upset child. Right now, you just gotta focus on bringing it calm, okay? We're not working on what happened, we are listening to them, validating them, getting them calm. After you connect to their brain, this is when we can get the teachable moment. Why did the child act this way? A lot of people will come to me and be like, my child spits, my child hits, this child does this. Why are they doing that? You need to know the antecedent. Were they having trouble taking turns? Are they having trouble waiting? The hitting isn't the problem. They're missing a skill that is causing them to lash out in some way. They are having a coping mechanism that they're missing that is causing them to go with hitting or spitting, okay? It's not the hitting or spitting that we necessarily need to work on. It's we need to help this child learn how to take turns. We need to help this child learn to stand in line. Things like that. So know the antecedent. What was happening before the child did the behavior, okay? We focus so much on the negative action that sometimes we forget, wait, they were having big feelings and they don't know how to cope with it. If we focus on teaching them a coping mechanism, then we get rid of this. Are we gonna say we do not hit when we have these big feelings? Yes, but we're then also gonna teach them what I can do instead of that, okay? If you just say, we do not hit, and move them back on, they didn't learn anything. They know that. They know they're not supposed to hit, but they don't know how to cope when they're mad, okay? So we need to think about what the behavior is we really need to be teaching them in that moment. Keep going. So this is when we go from reactivity to receptivity. If they are calm, we can talk to them. Be curious with them. But make them say it instead of you lecturing them. I saw you. You took that toy away from that kid. What happened? Did you want that toy? Be curious, you know what happened, but be curious with them. They want to tell their side of the story, and them telling it is going to create then moments, well, then how do you think they felt? You can open up more of a storyline with them. So make sure you are working with them and not lecturing them, okay? And then make sure you go all the way to, if they need to, reconcile with another child. And then always redirect them. You cannot put a child that has just had a behavior incident right back in the room without giving them guidance, okay? Redirect them to a game, redirect them to a task, throw them off with a question, just redirect them, okay? If you just say, okay, and then put them back in, guess what they're gonna do? Probably go right back to where the issue was, and we have a good chance of that issue happening right away again. they need time to be redirected to something else and let their brain process. Okay, that all sounded nice and pretty, right? Does it always look like that? No, sorry. There are bigger behaviors and challenging behaviors that will come up. Always know that you can delay the teachable moment. If we've calmed them down and it's time to transition, let the transition happen. You can come back and do that teachable moment later on, 30 snack, or when they show up the next week, hey, remember when we had trouble with this? What are ways we're gonna work to get to, not have this problem? They are not dogs, okay? I know, like, we clicker train dogs. We don't need to clicker train these kids, okay? The teachable moment doesn't have to happen right away. We can let them calm down, move on, come back with that teachable moment. At home with like motherhood, we have a lot of the teachable moments at night in bed. Like, we got through it. Don't worry, I'm still gonna talk to you, kid, but it's gonna be at a different time when I'm even calmer too. So that moment doesn't have to happen right away. Some kids will need a full reset, okay? Some kids need to leave the room. If it's just too much, or if they are harming themselves or harming other kids, we need to get them out of the room, okay? And Michelle is gonna work with y'all on creating an SOS plan about going to the hall monitors, and then to her about how we're gonna help these kids that need a full reset, okay? Their brains are just under too much, and they need to get out, okay? And we're gonna help them calm down outside the room, because happening inside the room is just not gonna happen. So has anyone ever seen those glitter in the bottle? Like Pinterest blew up with these, okay? Does anybody know why they work? Is glitter magical? I think so. Glitter is not magical, okay? So why is a glitter in a bottle help kids so much? So these kids that are so dysregulated, their brain is spinning. And you shake up a glitter bottle, and what do they look at? The glitter, okay? And it's doing all sorts of cool things, okay? All you did was take their spinning world to one thing, and that's why it works. Okay, so these kids that their brains are just spinning, we need to get them out, calm them down, get them focused on one thing before we can get them back into the room, okay? So this is why we talked to Michelle about having some sensory toys to kind of help bring these kids back down when they're super dysregulated. Have a plan with your partners. Sometimes you need to change who's gonna do what with that day. Make sure you set yourself up for success. And Michelle is gonna create an SOS plan for y'all. Don't ever feel like you're stuck in that room and you're gonna leave crying. Nobody wants that, okay? They're here to help you. Sometimes children get dysregulated and are having hard days. It happens. It is not a reflection of you, okay? It is nothing you did. Their brains are just struggling, and that's okay, but we want to help them, okay? And again, that open communication with parents. Hey, he struggled with this. He, got dysregulated at that moment, got a little impulsive. Is there something you do at home that can help us? And remember, you're doing so much more than you think. You are not childcare. You are discipling their hearts, okay? Please know that you are special. You're super. And you are raising the next generation for the church. And I love this quote, Mr. Rogers. From the time you were very little, you've had people who smiled you into smiling, people who have talked you into talking, sung you into singing, and loved you into loving. You are giving them God's love. This might be the only hour or two that whole week they see God's love, and you gave it, okay? You are the only one that week that might show them God's love. You are the only ones that might show them love that week, and what it means to listen to them and connect to them and validate their feelings and say that when you're at your worst, I'm still here. When you're at your best, I'm here. And that's really cool for these kids. So yeah, thank you. y'all very much.